Everything appears to be going very, very well in the Magic Kingdom these days, but the pressure points that could keep the Magic from being the best team they can be, what to watch out for today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is December 1st, or it's November 30th. It will be December 1st, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season, the last time the Magic had a decent offense. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, I want to talk about the pressure points, the things that the Magic aren't doing quite as well as they need to right now that could derail their season, the things to watch out for, and where opponents may try to attack the Magic. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies. That means you're listening 5 days a week. You're one of our everydayers. It means you're listening on the weekends when we do the weekend episodes. That means that you are making us part of your regular podcast rotation, your first listen of the day. We truly appreciate all of you for being part of our Locked On Magic community, almost to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. And we thank you all for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel to get started. The Orlando Magic are playing really, really well right now. I'm not here to just do this super negative episode. I'm being critical and offering some things to watch out for because this team is not a perfect team yet. They have feasted on some weak teams. They have gotten some really nice wins, including Friday's win. But looking back at Friday's win, it was clear, even in that victory, that there are still pieces of the puzzle that are missing. It is very clear that, yes, the Magic were able to kind of dig down and find the grit and determination that they had for much of last year when their offense just didn't work. The Magic found a way to win a game where they shot 5 for 30 from three. It was, again, I think I mentioned this the other day, but it was their worst three-point field goal percentage in a win since a 1 for 16 showing in December 2015. 1 for 16 showing from three. So their worst three-point field goal percentage in almost 10 years in a win. The Magic won a few games shooting like 25% from three last year, but obviously that's not sustainable. And so that is a credit to how well the Magic played defensively. That is a credit to how the Magic found gaps to get points and score. But I want to just make sure we understand this. There are ways to beat the Magic. There are ways to slow them down. There are ways to make them look human. And while Detroit is an upper echelon team, the Magic are able to get away with, or able to kind of find a way to win, which you have to do. There's going to be a lot of teams trying to figure out this formula too, and trying to figure out how do we stop the Magic? How do we make it harder on the Magic? And if you look at the Magic's offensive profile, it's pretty easy to see. Now, this is, again, not to say all the Magic are in big trouble offensively. They're not the offensive team that they were. I am not doing that. I'm not playing that game. The Magic right now are entering Sunday's games, are 8th in the league in offensive rating, 117.3 points per 100 possessions. We will take that. The Magic haven't been outside the bottom 10 in offensive rating since 2012. We were just expecting league average. We weren't even expecting a good offense. They're just hoping league average and the defense will take care of everything else. If anything, it's been the offense carrying the defense a little bit through parts of the season. The defense, we'll get to that in a minute, has had its own weaknesses to deal with. So if the Magic are playing this much better on offense, what is powering the shift? That was the question I was thinking about over the weekend. Why is the offense that much better? Well, it's not shooting. Magic are still 22nd in the league in three-point shooting with 34.7%. Certainly better than last year. Certainly making more shots than last year. But still pretty bad. It's not passing. The Magic are 21st with 25.6 assists per game, 25th in potential assists per game with 43.7, and 24th with 65.6 assist points created per game. Orlando is moving the ball more. I'm not saying otherwise, and I know there's the whole debate and the whole thing about that. But the Magic are still not a high pass volume team. Their offense is still based on getting someone downhill, usually with a pick and roll, getting downhill and getting to the basket that way and creating tension in the defense that way. In fact, the Magic are not even a good pick and roll team. According to our friends at Synergy Sports, on 409 possessions, the third most frequent play that the Magic use, and certainly the most frequent they use in the half court because transitions number 2, spot ups number 1. The Magic has scored only 330 points in 409 possessions. That's 0.807 points per possession. That's we're way down at the bottom of the league. What the Magic are good at offensively, and the reason why the Magic have made this surge is because of their transition play, because of their pace. The Magic are among the very best teams in the league. I think they're third or fourth in the league with 1.241 points per possession in transition. I believe they're third, again, top 5 in the league in transition possessions per game. They're elite at offensive rebounding. They're averaging 130, have 107 total possessions of offensive rebounds, 1.343 points per possession. They're good when they get the roll man involved in their pick and rolls, not the ball handler. When they're able to get Goga Bitadze flying to the rim or Wendell Carter or even Paolo Banchero, that's where they're really good. And so you have this weird dichotomy of, yes, the Magic are scoring a lot of points and you got to score the points. Forget all this point per possession, this all piece neutral stuff, which is important for comparison's sake. At the end of the day, you got to put the ball in the basket. And the Magic are doing that better than they were last year. And again, the big flip is they're elite at 2 things offensively. They're elite at transition play, and they're elite at getting to the foul line. And they're pretty good at getting offensive rebounds and going around the basket. Orlando, again, has come a long, long way. Because last year, they were 24th in the league with 45.8 points in the paint per game. This year, they're 4th. Again, same thing with transition. Last year, they were near the bottom of the league in transition possessions and points per possession. This year, they're among the very best teams. But that has not changed that they're not good in the half court. According to Synergy, Orlando is 21st in the league with 0.965 points per possession in half court sets. So when we get to the playoffs and we get to games like Friday night where the game bogs down and slows down and the Magic have to find a way to get downhill, this is a struggle. This is a pressure point. And so maybe Paolo helps with that. Paolo's probably the best player on the team at breaking guys down off the dribble and creating those kind of ISO sets and having the gravity to take a few defenders with him so he can dish out to open shooters and open players. Certainly, I think Paolo can help, but I don't believe the numbers quite support that yet. The Magic have been bad at half-court offense all season. The Magic have to continue improving defensively and continue to take critical steps forward so that their defense can continue to create their offense. But will that work when we get to the spring? Will that work when we get to the playoffs? The Magic's offense is good. Again, it's doing the job. And it's going to continue to evolve and develop, especially when Paolo comes back. He won't be back Monday, but especially when Paolo gets back, it'll continue to develop and evolve. It will continue to get better. But don't think right now that the Magic offense is somehow perfect. Don't think right now that it isn't a pressure point that elite defensive teams like the Pistons, who did a good job bottling the Magic up in that fourth quarter and making that a game when the Magic could have run away with it. Defensive teams like, I'm going to say them, the Miami Heat, who we will see twice in the next 2 weeks. One in an NBA Cup game that's going to be very, very meaningful and have a playoff vibe and atmosphere to it. The Magic's offense still has a lot to prove. And I think there's still a little, I certainly don't think the Magic are going to be bottom 10 in the league in offensive rating this year. They're not. They're gonna end that streak. They might be a top 10 offense. They might. Again, they're so elite in transition right now. They might be a top 10 offense. But there's still a lot of work to do. And so I just want to highlight that pressure point. Because frankly, while the Magic are greatly improved, the defense still has work to do. Where the defense is still lagging behind. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. Lock in your lineup and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including right here in Florida. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. You can put together a group and predict whether Franz Wagner will score more than his predicted points total, whether the Magic will hold Nikola Vucevic to less than his predicted point total, or combine different sports, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, college, whatever it is. I could probably even get Formula One with the big race coming up on Sunday. Whatever it is, you can combine your picks and make big wins. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you can get the option to cash out early. And with stacks, you can now choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup. Plus, their injury protection means that if a player goes out in the first half, you're not on the hook for that stat anymore. That is thrown out. Doesn't affect your group after that. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day and making it your first listen of the day. And thank you again for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. The offense for the Orlando Magic has been a revelation. Again, like they're 8th in the league in offensive rating. 8th in the league in offensive rating. It's like beyond our wildest imaginations. And if the Magic can keep that up, they're going to be very, very good. The Magic are also coming on very strong defensively too. After back-to-back really strong defensive performances against the Philadelphia 76ers, who they held to less than a point per possession, and the Detroit Pistons, who they held to like 102, 103 points per 100 possessions, the Magic are now 8th in the league in defensive rating. 8th in the league at 112.4. It is typically set to be an elite team in the NBA, to be a team that is conference finals worthy, to advance in the playoffs, to be one of those teams. You got to be top 10 in both offense and defense. And looking at the top 10 in offense and defense, the only teams that I'm seeing that are there are the Magic, the Spurs, the Thunder, the Rockets. The Wolves are just sneaking in there, and the Pistons. Among the East teams, the Magic and the Pistons are the only 2 East teams that qualify as top 10 offenses and defenses for the season. And I want to grant this. The defensive surge the Magic have been on is a fairly recent thing. Over the last 10 games, we're 20 games in the season. We're about at the quarter mark of the season. So we can start looking at these stats and say, like, okay, this is kind of who this team is. Over the last 10 games, or half the season, the Magic are giving up only 110.6 points per 100 possessions. That is 5th in the league over teams' last 10 games. So again, I am not sitting here telling you the Magic are bad at defense. I am not sitting here telling you the Magic are in somehow kind of trouble. I am merely here saying that, okay, we've seen this Magic team have some struggles defensively. We've seen them come out of those struggles. We've seen them rebound the ball a whole lot better. They were struggling with offensive rebounds early in the season. Now they are, if I'm going to pull up my stats here, now they are 5th in the league in opponent offensive rebound rate. They only give up 29.3% opponent offensive rebound rate. That's essentially 3 offensive rebounds for every 10 misses. The Magic were really struggling to create turnovers early in the season. Now they're 9th in the league in opponent turnover rate. They were 2nd last year. So a little bit of a downturn there, especially for a team trying to get out and transition more. But the Magic are only forcing opponents to 15.5% turnover rate. It's a number that has been creeping up. Again, last 10 games. Let's just cut off the last 10 games here. The Magic are 3rd at 15%. Sorry, I have that number wrong. Over the last 10 games, the Magic are 13th at only 15%. So that's a number that hasn't quite caught up yet. Opponent points in the paint, the Magic are really good at scoring in the paint. One of the Magic's big defensive problems last year is they gave up a lot of points in the paint. Orlando is 21st in the league, giving up 51.8 points in the paint. And again, the Magic will foul. They're not afraid to foul you. Defensively, the Magic still give up a lot. The Magic still struggle a little bit in isolation. They struggle with handoffs, according to Synergy. But for the most part, Orlando has started to really firm up defensively. They're giving up only 1.095 points per possession in transition. They're giving up only 0.857 points per possession on pick and rolls to ball handlers, which is, again, crazy good. It's not like elite. It's a little bit above league average. They're starting to play that tough physical brand of Magic basketball that we're used to. But I wouldn't call the Magic's defense consistently elite yet. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge to get there. And maybe the Magic are pacing themselves a little bit more, and the offense has eased some of that burden. But the Magic, I think, still have work to do to build into the defensive team they want to become. There's still too many of the swipe down fouls and giving up fouls at the wrong times to the wrong shooters. But overall, their physicality has gotten, and there's no numbers to back this up. But overall, their physicality has gotten a lot better over the last 10 games or last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And again, that's not a Paolo thing. Paolo is going to help with that. But this team has, I think, really found its groove on both ends. It's found its kind of center as far as what they're trying to do and how they need to play. And they're starting to assert themselves. There's just a level of confidence in the way that they're playing right now. But the defense is not last year's defense. And so, again, Friday, the way that they played against the Pistons, that was encouraging. Because for the first time all season, the Magic had to win a game like they did last year. Their offense wasn't reliable. Their offense was stuck in the mud. They needed to get stops. They needed to make defensive plays. And so what he knows, Desmond Bane knocking the ball off of Cade Cunningham twice. It's digging out huge rebounds to prevent second chance opportunities against a really good offensive rebounding team in the Pistons. And so the Magic are finding their footing on defense. But there's still those little threads you can pull, whether it's getting out in transition, which the Magic have been better at, but still some work to do. And again, opponent fast break points, the Magic are 26th, giving up 16.9 fast break points per game. Again, last 10 games, so they're 26 over the full season. Last 10 games, they are, I can find them, 18th at 15.4. So you can still beat this team in transition. Again, everyone's playing a little bit faster right now, and the Magic get their licks in. It's not easy to score on them in transition, but the Magic will turn the ball over. They'll give you some opportunities if you can take them. And so there's still just all these pieces to put together. And so the Magic are improving. Again, I don't want to say that they're bad. They're good. Statistically, they're good. And they're getting better, and they're playing better. But I think there's still these pressure points to worry about. There's still these little things to be aware of, to be cognizant of, and these little things that the Magic still have to be diligent about. Because the season can turn very, very quickly, and you can lose your defense very, very fast. To that point, then, who are the pressure point players? Who are the players that are feeling the most heat? We'll get to that and talk about Jonathan Isaac coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching a game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly and player props that update as guys heat up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We are still 2 weeks away from the real opening of the trade season. Like we are not there yet. So it's not crazy. It's still a little early to talk seriously about trades. Again, we crossed the quarter mark of the season at halftime on Monday. So we'll talk first quarter of the season stuff. We're talking a little bit about it today. We'll talk more of like expansive first quarter of the season stuff coming up here over the next few days. Maybe today should have been that day because we had a couple days off, but I've been saving it for when we actually cross the first quarter mark. It's still early. And again, most players can't be traded. Players who are acquired in the offseason can't be traded until December 15th. Trade deadline's February 5th. We got a long, long way to go. But even on a team like the Orlando Magic that feels like a lot is established and a lot is kind of settled, there are a lot of questions. There are two players specifically who are starting to really feel the heat. And yes, they're feeling the heat because rookies are on the roster. When they get a chance, they perform well, and everybody loves the new toys. Again, I'm a believer that Jace Richardson and Noah Penda have played well enough in the minutes they've been given that the Magic should feel comfortable giving them minutes. And again, I've said this to several people. I think Jace Richardson, the Magic should pick a game for him to play and give him an opportunity, give him a look because you're going to need him at some point. You don't want to just throw him in there kind of cold. But undoubtedly, the two players that kind of feel the biggest pressure are Tyus Jones and Jonathan Isaac. Now, both Tyus Jones and Jonathan Isaac to this point in the season are not players that you judge off their statistics. Like, yes, Tyus Jones needs to shoot better. Yes, he needs to score a little bit more. That's one of the reasons he was brought in. But he's also a stabilizer and a point guard. And so I do think the Magic are not so worried about the scoring as long as he is kind of being that veteran leader they need him to be. Now, again, they might need this, he's had some good games here over the last few weeks. He's starting to kind of get comfortable in his role and where his spots are going to be. Look, he's not going to be good defensively, but I think he understands where he needs to be defensively and what he's capable of doing. Jace Richardson's a rookie, and while the upside is certainly very, very high, there's still a lot of work that he needs to do and a lot of trust he needs to gain. Again, I'm for giving him opportunities to gain that trust, but I understand why Tyus Jones is still the guy. There's still probably no bigger question, though, with Jonathan Isaac. And as Jake Fisher on the Mark Stein Line Substack noted last week, a lot of front offices around the league are monitoring Jonathan Isaac. Because, yes, that salary is a big one. And the Magic are going to have to make some financial decisions here very, very soon. And Jonathan Isaac's probably at some point going to be a cap sacrifice, much the way that Jet Howard has already become a cap sacrifice. This season, Isaac has had moments, and that includes Friday's game. Friday, he had only 4 points and 3 rebounds with a block, but the team went plus 26 in his 13 and a half minutes. He played really well. But when you look at his numbers, it's still a struggle. He's averaging only 10.2 minutes per game. You don't want to pay $15 million for a guy who's only playing 10 minutes per game. He's averaging only 2.9 points per game. He's shooting just 21.7% from three. The team has a team worst 102.6 offensive rating with Isaac on the floor. His 106.1 defensive rating when he's on the floor trails only Jalen Suggs. So it feels very much like a typical Jonathan Isaac season. When Jonathan Isaac plays well, Jonathan Isaac over the last 2-3 seasons, or when he's played for the last 2-3 seasons, he's been such a defensive maven on the floor. You didn't care that his offense kind of tanked the team, that is just inability to do anything offensively, really tanked the team. Now, though, his defense is really just really good. Again, like Jonathan Isaac's still a really good defender, but we're used to him being all defensive team, elite level defense. And he'll still do that from time to time. And frankly, more often than not. That's probably unfair to say from time to time. It happens a lot. But the Magic also needs scoring. And the Magic also needs something offensively. And that's sort of an area where Noah Penda fits in a little bit better. Now, again, it's been better in the last 9 games and or in the last 10 games because Isaac only played 9 of those. The Magic have a 101.8 defensive rating with Isaac on the floor. And while it is still a team worst mark, a 110 offensive rating when Isaac's on the floor. That is a plus 8.2 net rating, which you will always take. That is a very high net rating. And so Isaac is still contributing, and Tyus Jones is still contributing. These players are still giving the team something. I want to make that clear. They are giving them something. The question is whether it is enough. And that is sort of where this pressure point comes in. Because their contributions are clear. But are their weaknesses outweighing those contributions? Or maybe their contributions aren't completely clear to non-like coaches and non-basketball people. Like I think Tyus Jones has been playing pretty well the last 2 weeks. Is it as good as the Magic need him to play? No, they do need his scoring. They do need his shooting. But I think Tyus Jones is starting to settle in, and I think he's playing more consistently and better than he did earlier in the season. And, every team has a scapegoat. Tyus Jones might be this year's scapegoat in the way that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Wendell Carter were scapegoats last year. And I'm not going to deprive you of that. I do think Tyus Jones needs to play better, but I don't think he's been as bad as fans say he is, and I get why Jamal Mosley's stuck with him. Jonathan Isaac's the same way. The stats aren't there. You're not going to see Jonathan Isaac's impact based on his statistics. But he is still doing a lot of really good things that the Magic value, and that's why they continue to turn to him. But all those criticisms, all those critics, all those weak spots are areas that teams can attack when we get to March and April. And again, as much as the playoffs are very, very far away, as much as the end of the season and being ready for the end of the season, being ready and peaking at that time, as much as that is all still very, very far away, it is something you have to think about because these pressure points are not going away. And the teams that the Magic will face at the end of the season are going to be the teams that can exploit these pressure points. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the ways you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. Like I said, we are nearing 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Very, very excited for that moment. So if you have friends that aren't subscribed or ghost accounts that aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You'll find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my daily newsletter, my Patreon page, your Orlando Magic Hub at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go make your second listen, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to chat about the Orlando Magic's game against the Chicago Bulls, their Peacock exclusive debut. Game is also on FanDuel Sports Network Florida, as far as I can tell. So we'll talk about that game against the Bulls, a big one to start a 3-game homestand. We'll do that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.